Hi everybody, welcome back, and if this is your first time, welcome. My name is Haddad, and today I'd like to talk about problems with punishments in the American judicial system. So basically everything I've learned lately has been from watching how other countries treat their criminals. And there's a big difference between the way they look at handling someone after they've committed a crime compared to how we do here in the States. And I don't know that what America needs to do is go all the way to the other end of a spectrum, but I know that some changes need to be made. So before we jump into that, a couple things. I told someone very special to the channel that once we get 1,000 subscribers, I would do a how-to prison taffy video. Prison taffy is something I would make and sell while I was incarcerated out of Kool-Aid, non-dairy creamer, and water. That was it. I need a microwave. I have a microwave. I don't have the other ingredients because I was waiting to get 1,000 subscribers. I thought it was going to take way longer. I'll be honest. It's only been about 3 months. So happy with the growth so far and getting really nervous because I realized that pretty soon I'm actually going to have to put up or shut up. So leave a sub. When we get to 1,000, I'm going to make that episode. Other thing is, everyone has been so positive and engaged and conversational and, here's my opinion and this is what I think, and sharing personal experiences with knowing a criminal, being incarcerated, being a guard, being a police officer, a fire, anything. And there's been very little hate, but there has been some, and it's not hate. That's not fair. That's just what we call it in 2021, haters. Most of the time, it's just people watching my videos saying you talk too much, especially when it's like a video like like the American prison versus Norwegian prison video. I always provide the original source material in the description, a link to the original video. So if you want to see that video without being interrupted by my sweet, sweet voice, my suggestion to you all would be my YouTube channel is the worst place to not hear me talk. Does that make sense? If you want to watch the source material without me talking over it, I suggest going literally anywhere else other than my YouTube channel. Does that make sense? Are we on the same page? Okay, not mad at you, just saying check the description. If I'm commentating over something, there's a link. Today's topic. Here are some arguments that I've heard about why, and recently in the comments, and I'm always grateful for real when somebody shares a dissenting opinion about something I've said. The argument is that punishment for committing crimes, where there's a victim especially, should be punishment, should be harsh. And it shouldn't be, like let's say Bostoway, it shouldn't be a farm, it shouldn't feel like a spa, it shouldn't be, the focus shouldn't be rehabilitative, it should be punitive. And this is really difficult to like really come to a consensus on. What am I saying? It's really difficult to figure out exactly how I feel and what I think about this, because I'm an ex-con. I've been to prison. I'm a drug addict with mental health problems aside from that. So I have acted in my past in ways that I would never act if I was thinking clearly. My behavior was not up to me, basically. But also, I'm a citizen. I'm now law-abiding. I have family members that have always been law-abiding. Some of them would not be able to protect themselves from somebody who's my size. And if one of them were hurt, not only would I be devastated, I would be furious. If you bumped into my niece, one of my nieces, on accident while we were walking down the street, I'd probably hit you. Don't do as I say, not as I do, or whatever. But if you hurt especially one of the females in my family, sorry, I think classically, whatever, it'd be very hard for me not to hate you and let you know. So yeah, like if somebody hurts somebody in my family, I'm going to want them to be punished for it. And if I can't legally punish them, well, then judge and prosecutor, you better do it for me. Because if I'm not happy with the results of the trial, I'm gunning for them. So I don't ever like to say I get it, because I feel like that sounds like, I think someone's opinion is so simple, like, oh, I get it, but now let me tell you what I think. But I feel like I get it. I do. But there's a piece that is not often discussed when we're talking about how the criminal should be treated. Because the argument is typically, what if you were the victim's mother? What if you were the victim's father or whatever? How would you feel if you realized the person who committed that awful crime against the person that you love ended up in some place where they're getting to ride horses and go for walks and sunbathe and things like that? And what I have to say in this video is, you're right. That would be upsetting. Let's say somebody, I hate to bring this up because I don't feel that I'm that capable of doing a good job talking about it. Let's say that somebody sexually assaulted someone in your family, and you found out that the perpetrator of the crime could end up in this posh prison that was about rehabilitating them to prevent them from committing that crime again. So I think the obvious answer following that logic, what if you were the parent, is like, oh yeah, I'd be disgusted to find out that the person that hurt my loved one ended up in that prison as opposed to one that's really going to punish them. But there's another person that we're not talking about. And what if you were the criminal's mother? She exists. Criminals aren't born in labs while law-abiding citizens come out of a womb. I mean, there are parents to children who have gone astray. And it's like my parents did a wonderful job. The sweetest, nicest, most charitable, loyal people, shirt off their back for you. Even if you have a shirt, you'll be like, put your shirt back on. And they're like, no, please take my shirt. That you'll ever meet. And I broke the law. There was a victim of my crime, not just the pharmacy, not just CVS, but the pharmacist and the pharmacy techs. And my mom suffered greatly. My dad suffered greatly. My siblings, my significant other at the time, my pets, they suffered deep sorrow, perpetual deep sorrow for years while I was incarcerated. And they played no predictable role that you can point a finger at to cause my behavior. Yet they suffered. So when we're talking about how would you feel if you were that person's mother, well, how would you feel if you were that person's mother? You know what I mean? We can't look at this stuff like it is so simple, because it's not. This is not a color by numbers situation. And that's sort of what I've been trying to get at, is you can't treat crimes in a courtroom like you did this, there is your punishment. Check this box, check that box. I understand that because the U.S. has such a huge population, it is difficult to arbitrate each trial individually, right? There has to be some objectivity, and you can't make up a new punishment for every person that comes into your courtroom. But because of our lack of ability, and in a lot of cases, I think lack of interest in providing a subjective punishment that is also rehabilitative to the person that committed the crime, we end up with huge recidivism rates. People commit the same crime again. So now, instead of there being one set of parents that have a child who was horrendously victimized, we've got two, and we've got three sets of parents. We've got multiple families now, because when it was up to us to solve this problem, that this person clearly has some sexual compulsions that they can't control or are choosing not to control, we dropped the ball. We took the easier way out. We said, well, let's just make it as hard on them as possible for the next amount of allotted time that I can give them. I can give them 15 years in prison. I'm going to give them all 15 years, and they're going to go to the shittiest prison possible. Okay? So they go, even though we know statistically that doesn't prevent them from committing the crime again. But for those 15 years, we feel that there's some vindication happening here. They're being hurt. We know that they're probably being beaten up by the other inmates. There's a lot. I'm not even going to get into that today. But they get out. And they do it again because it doesn't work. And in my mind, it should work. You did a bad thing. You have an awful punishment, a decade and a half long anguish because of the bad thing you did. And you do it again. It makes sense to me that you would stop because the punishment was so bad. But guys, that's just not what the numbers say. It's just not what we have. It's measurable. It doesn't work. It doesn't. I wish it did. I wish it was so simple, but it isn't. And that's just the way it is. So unless we just start killing everybody that commits a crime, that person's getting out. Okay. Some people commit crimes that are so awful that they will never get out of prison. And yeah, I guess to some extent it's working in that case. They get punished for their whole life and we never have to see them again. Awesome. Now, never mind the fact that there are law-abiding citizens that work at prisons and they're being subjected to this person's infamy. But we can ignore that because they chose to work at the prison. But the person who gets 15 years for a crime that is really terrible, that honestly could potentially ruin a whole family's existence for decades, is getting out again. And so regardless of how it feels, right? Like it feels like we should just punish them because then they'll learn, or we should punish them because the victim deserves justice. And I do basically believe the victim deserves justice and lock them up for this amount of time. Like regardless of how that feels, that it almost feels good. Like, yeah, fuck you, motherfucker, you piece of shit. We're locking you up, bitch. And you're going to get your ass kicked for years. So it doesn't work and more people get hurt. So we can live in delusion. We can act like this vindictive culture that we live in is effective. I wish I knew more people that had been victims. And so I could ask them, how did this person being punished severely help you process the pain that they caused you? But I don't really know anyone that's been a victim of crime other than my crimes, my family members. So because I would guess, and it's only a guess, I would guess that there is probably some like you're going to prison. But then you still have grief. Revenge doesn't resolve grief. If revenge resolved grief, I could have gotten out of the pains of my breakup by going and beating up my ex and her new guy. Like, gotcha for treating me like shit while I was in prison. Now I feel great. But that's not how grief works. It's just not. And wish it was. Again, I wish there was a button you could press to hurt the person that hurt you, and whoo, now I feel good. And they're not allowed to press the button back. Because then I'd have to press it, and then it's this never-ending thing of I press the button, you press the button, you press the button, which in a way is sort of what we're doing, because this criminal, and I'll talk about the fact that it's a compulsion in a minute, not just that they just love to commit evil, but they commit an evil act, and they hurt us. They hurt you. They hurt your family. They hurt us. And you press the button. Right? They pressed the button to hurt you because they felt wronged by society. They felt forgotten, disenfranchised. Nobody cares about them. So they say, well, if society doesn't care about me, I don't care about society. And so they hurt us. They press the button. So we press the button back. Well, you hurt us. So now we're going to press this punishment button. So they go in and they get their punishment. And the whole time we're like, yeah, I pressed the button. And then they come out and they're resentful and extremely bitter, more than they ever would have been before. And they're furious. And so they come back out and circumstances arise that they could commit the same crime again. And they're only more angry at the society that not only forgot them, but forgot them, and then punished them. And so they press the button again to get us back. And maybe it's worse. Maybe they press the button harder, or they press it 3 times. And then they show up to court again, and we're like, oh, you didn't like how I watched this time. Woo! And we just do that. And we just keep hurting each other. I said at the beginning, I don't like to say I get it, but I get it. I love vengeance. I really do. I like it when somebody embarrasses me and I say something back that really makes them look stupid. That feels good. One of my favorite things about stand-up was handling hecklers, because that was one of the things I was good at. I like to embarrass people when they were trying to embarrass me. That felt great. I love vengeance. I can't say I know the anguish that you must go through when someone that you love or yourself has been sexually victimized or just beaten profusely. I mean, just like, it's awful. Okay, so I'm not saying I get that, but I know that it does feel good to make a victim out of the person that made you a victim. But it simply doesn't work. And that's what we're doing in America. We're doing something that doesn't work because we're answering to our emotions over and over again. And America is a very emotional place. We're answering to our emotions. We're using being offended by something to empower ourselves. And we're hurting the criminal, even though later on they'll hurt us again. Two things. I'll get to the compulsion, I swear. It's frustrating because the people that get hurt when this person gets out of prison are not us, right? You know that thing where, like, it happened to somebody either forever ago or now, but in a very far away place, and it feels like they don't really even exist? That's basically what we're doing, is we're saying, okay, well, subconsciously saying, it's not going to be me they hurt again. So it's not really a problem, basically. It's self-centeredness, and I get it. Like, I'm not the Dalai Lama, and to be honest, I don't believe the Dalai Lama feels for everyone in the world. I think maybe he's trying his best. I could easily go down a rabbit hole there. I'm not going to. But we feel that the negativity, the pain that will be caused later is somehow less real because it's not impacting us and it's happening at a very different time than right now. Comparable to how when I'm sitting at night and I decide to binge eat, even though I know that tomorrow I will feel awful for having done so, that tomorrow version of me is not the me right now. So it's almost like it's happening to someone else, and therefore I am able to justify hurting that guy because it's not me, even though it is. Mental health is frustratingly unaddressed in the American judicial system compared to some of the other places that we've looked at on this channel. I think as time goes on, 100 years from now, whatever, we are going to recognize child molesters as having a brain disease. I'm not taking their side. I'm not saying he's just sick, just let him have sex with kids. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when someone has a brain disease, something in their head doesn't work right. AKA, it's not a moral choice. They're not choosing to hurt people because they like to commit evil acts, or they know that it's evil, but they don't care. That's not what it is. Their brain is telling them that something is right. When I used drugs, it felt like the right choice, even though a part of me knew it was the wrong choice, right? Because we've got multiple voices in our head. We've got the voice that's like, do it, do it, do it. Like, eat the cake, eat the cake, eat the cake. Or, vegetate all day, sit on the couch all day, call into work. And we've got the voice that's like, no, you really need to get up because you know you'll feel bad later. If you don't, you need to get to work. You need to eat some celery. Eat some celery. We've got multiple voices. So they've got the voices. I had the voice that was like, do it, do it, do it, do it. It's the right thing. The world has forgotten you. So you should definitely just screw the world, watch it burn, get high. And the voice that said, your mother and father will be absolutely ruined for the 1,000th time, sobbing, afraid that you're dying, hurt that you would steal from them. You'll get in trouble. Not just with your parents, with the law, all sorts of stuff, both voices. But one of them overrides the other because one of them is not necessarily more convincing, but it's backed by an older system in the brain. I don't even want to get into brain science because I'm not that smart, but basically it's backed by the amygdala, the limbic system, the thing that's telling us, like, basically, okay, what I'm saying is when I was getting high, it felt like I was addressing a need like water and food and procreation, right? It had become, and you can please look this up, it becomes as important to the addict as procreation, food, and water. So I would chase it as though it were that necessary. And my guess is, in the future, people who are attracted to people that are younger than them are going to, not just younger than them, like, gross, like it's gross. The wiring that decides whom you are attracted to it's going to be proven that those people, their brains aren't functioning the right way. Okay, so again, not taking their side. My point in all this, all that rambling was, when someone's brain is telling them something is true, even though it is clearly the wrong thing, you can't punish them out of that way of thinking, right? It would be like me beating you up until you decided that you didn't need oxygen. I just hit you. You don't need air. I need air. You don't need air. You don't. You only breathe Hawaiian punch. And so it wouldn't work. Because your brain is telling you, no, I have to breathe. But I'm telling you, you don't. You either don't breathe or you breathe Hawaiian punch for some reason. It wouldn't work. I can't beat and punish you out of what your brain is telling you is a necessity. It'd be great. If I could beat myself out of thinking sugar tasted good, that would be amazing. But that's just not how it works. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing in America. We're beating people, trying to convince them something else is the truth. But that's just not effective. It's just not. It just doesn't work. So we have to try something else. Even though, and I totally agree, even though, that being nice to people who have hurt us is way harder than just being mean to them. That we probably won't get that oomph of vindication when we press that button, like when we press that button, right? Knowing that they're going to be going to a psych ward as compared to a level 5 prison where they have to ask permission to shower every third day. It's not going to feel good in the same way. But what's not going to happen is we're no longer going to be treating our grief with resentment, which is doesn't resolve grief. And we're no longer going to be saying, fuck you, to the person who exists 15 years from now, who is going to have to be raped again. Not again, but raped or beaten or robbed or any of that. Because that's what we're doing. We're saying, you're not me. You don't exist right now or in this room with me right now. So deal with it. Because right now, pushing the button. Because that's what I want. Because it's making me sort of feel better in this moment. And it just doesn't resolve anything. So we just, are we going to continue looking at mental health as though it is just a choice? Like we'll just stop. You get the flu. I can't ask you to stop having the flu. Yes, it's not the exact same kind of sickness, but guys, it's a sickness. Okay, there are people smarter than you and I, and lots of them, thousands of them, in fact, probably more than that have been studying this for many, many years and concluded many, many years ago that things like depression and anxiety and addiction and alcoholism, which are the same fucking thing, schizophrenia, these are not just things that you stumble into because you made a series of bad choices. They are far more complicated than that. But right now, the American judicial system Most often, there are occasions when it does not, but the 99% of the time treats those things as non-issues, like completely neutral in regards to what happened in a crime, at a crime scene, right? Like me being an addict, right? Me not having control over my behavior when it comes to drugs and alcohol was basically not addressed when it came to me being arrested and charged and sent to prison for robbing a pharmacy. I tried to go to, it's called drug court. Basically, you go in front of a judge 3 times a week and you take a drug test like every day, literally. And you tell you take a drug test to see if you're doing drugs or not. And they measure every day to make sure, okay, so he had, nothing yesterday. If there's any today, we know he used between today and yesterday. That sort of thing. So they keep you very accountable, and you go in front of the judge and you tell them everything that you're doing right and everything that you're doing wrong. And if you say, I applied to 3 jobs this week, and she says, oh, well, prove it, and you can't, well, then you're going to jail because you have to prove what you've done. You have to be working. You have to be going to AA and NA meetings if that's what they want you to do. Therapy, group therapy, one-on-one counseling, all of that stuff. You have to be living a good, healthy life. And somebody is holding your hand to the fire to get you to do that. And I tried to do that, right? I tried to get in drug court because I knew that if I had that level of accountability with the thought of prison time hanging over my head, like if I screw this up, I am going to prison, I knew that I would do well. And they told me that I couldn't get drug court because my crime was not drug related. I'm a drug addict. I robbed a pharmacy for drugs. I sold none of those drugs. I simply took them and overdosed 4 times. Yet my crime was not drug related. That's what I was told. It wasn't just me asking. It was the lawyer asking, multiple judges. And finally, the judge in control of drug court, the person who you would see every time you went in, that is in control of it, ultimately said no, because he doesn't have a drug-related charge. Never mind the 3 possession of marijuana charges and that I have on my record already. Never mind that I robbed a pharmacy. It's not a drug charge. Mental health, addiction, these things are an afterthought if they come in to play at all in court. And they are the number 1 indicator of somebody committing a drug-related crime. You are way more likely to drink and drive if you're an alcoholic. Way more likely. So we either need to accept that we're just going to remain ignorant and say, well, who cares about evidence-based punishments and rehabilitation? We're just going to hire extra hangmen and let them have at the criminals because we prefer vindication. And that person in the future that I don't know, hopefully, well, they can just go get fucked and not necessarily consensually. So it's super understandable, honestly, because it's not easy to care about somebody who you don't know and who you'll likely never hear about if they get hurt or not. It's very, 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 very difficult to act with wisdom as opposed to acting emotionally or acting with the current moment's best interests at heart as opposed to something more mid or long term. It's like so difficult. But when people act irrationally, like an addict or, someone with schizophrenia goes and hurts someone because they're having an episode. When someone acts irrationally, illogically, when somebody acts crazy, it is the responsibility not of the crazy person, but of the healthy people to address it like adults. To address it so that we can prevent it from happening again. And I am all for individual accountability, right? If anything, I feel like America needs more than that. More of that. Geez, Gemini. Needs more of that. But we can't hold people accountable that can't hold themselves accountable. That's just stupid. And we keep getting hurt over and over and over again. And, oh, they're just so mean to us. Well, that's because we're not protecting ourselves yet. So maybe when we start putting up a fight that actually works, we'll stop getting hurt. Us being this society, this country. Maybe we'll finally stop getting hurt when we actually care to protect ourselves in a way that works. Talk to you soon. Bye.